Hello everyone, this is the second video to support your professional experience lectures, and we're moving on from the first part of the Me PLC canvas, which was about customers and market research, to this second section here, which I've called the value proposition, which I will come on to in a minute. Before we get to that, I just thought it was very quickly worth reviewing where we got to. So we looked at the equivalent of customer market research, customers and market research for your job search, and what that required you to do is to capture some data, look at all the information on job adverts, job descriptions, all those sort of things, immerse yourself into that world, and then start to have an understanding of what your employer is looking for, the sorts of employers that you're hoping to move into a career in the future. So you would have captured this sort of information, knowledge, skills, experience, location, all of those things that they're looking for. So you now have an understanding of the sort of market, if you like, that you're trying to enter yourself into. So the second part of this is sort of continuing on with this sort of borrowing from this theme of businesses and business startup, is this notion of value proposition. And this is quite straightforward really, even though it might sound a bit peculiar, but all it is thinking about how businesses are trying to understand what it is that they have of value that they can convince a customer to part with money with. So if you think of anything that you've bought, I mean, let's just take food, for example. Food obviously has a value. It has a fundamental nutritional value. Without it, of course, we will die. But also, food manufacturers don't just trade on that as value. They will trade on flavour and taste and all sorts of different things that they will try to sort of engage their customers with in order to try and sell their whatever sort of food it is. So everything has a value to a customer. If it doesn't have a value to a customer, then you're not going to buy it as a customer. So that's the basis of it. So it's answering those basic questions there. What product or service are you building, for who, and what does it solve for them? You know, what problem are you solving? And again, taking the food example, you're solving the problem of being hungry, but also providing something which is desirable. And so your value proposition needs to meet the demands of your customers. And when you get this right, in business parlance, we call this a product market fit. And so I want you to think of yourself as a product. Remember, you've done the market research. So the market are the employers and you are the product, and you're trying to get a fit with what employers are looking for. So here's an example, continuing the example that we showed last time. So this Java sort of developer, you know that the employer, the market, what they want because you did your research. So you've got to make sure that you meet all of those requirements that they're asking for. But also, in the job market, of course, you want to be able to demonstrate that you're not just the right fit, but you have some extra stuff. It's that extra stuff that's going to help you stand out from the crowd, stand out from the other people that are applying. So going back to this example again, we went through it sort of systematically, and we looked at the things that they were looking for, and then there's an opportunity to say, well, do you have that? Do you have the knowledge and skills required for this particular job? So in this example, we said that the person who was applying had Java SE, and the evidence was some work in a portfolio and enterprise Java capabilities, etc., etc. But we decided that this person didn't have JavaScripting, and so there's a no there, and you can sort of carry on through this. So this is called a gap analysis, and you can see that these are the gaps. And if I were this person and I wanted to apply for this job, if the job description explicitly asked for these things, Java scripting, exceptional communication skills, and I couldn't really demonstrate that I could do them, then obviously it would be unlikely that I would be able to apply, or if I did apply, unless the field was particularly poor, I guess it would be unlikely that I would get a job interview. So we want to, I'll just come back to that. So what I want you to do for your first piece of homework for before next Wednesday's class is to do one of these gap analyses. So go back to the job descriptions that you looked at previously, and if you haven't done so yet, just go online, have a look in newspapers, journals, magazines, those sort of things, and find a job or a few jobs and list these things, and then be honest and ask yourself, well, do I have the capability? Have I got the product market fit that this employer is looking for? And I want you to highlight those areas where there's a gap. And the reason that you will do this is that you need to fill that gap in order to apply for that job. You don't want to be in a position in a couple of years' time when you're applying for jobs and suddenly you realise there's a sort of a glaring gap in the requirement for a particular job role. So it might be something sort of technical. It could be that you have a software capability that is required, but you don't know how to do that, use that piece of software. Or it could be something sort of a bit softer like this. It may be that they're asking for a particular personality trait, like exceptional communication and presentation skills, and it may be that you are sort of there but not quite. And so this whole exercise is about plugging those gaps, and where are the gaps, and then more importantly, what are you going to do in order to fill those gaps? So on that sheet, just flick back to that. So on your Me PLC canvas, what I want you to do is produce a gap analysis. So you can either write it on there, you can do it on a separate piece of paper, you can stick it on post-it notes to stick on here if you want to. It doesn't matter really, as long as you've done it. And you'll probably have to do it for sort of several different job descriptions, or you could sort of amalgamate different job descriptions into one great big sort of list of sort of value propositions that you need to meet. And then highlight those areas in the gap analysis, and then really carefully think about what you're going to do between now and when you would be applying for that job type in order to fill that gap. So that's what I want you to do before class next week. In class next week, we are also going to sort of do help you to start to sort of build this sort of extra and some capability to your profile and your personality in order to help you stand out from the crowd. So what makes you stand out from the competition? What extra stuff have you got that will put you ahead of the other people that are applying, or those people that are being interviewed for the position on the day? So in business, we often talk about a USP, which is a unique selling point. So what is it about you that will really attract an employer? And it could be that you've done a particular type of work experience, and that's part of the hope of doing this unit, is that having that work experience will be a fabulous unique selling point for you when you come to apply for jobs. But it could be something else. It could be something that you've done outside of university study. It could be that you've done some amazing voluntary work, or you work for a charity, or you've done some amazing feats like skydiving from outer space, or whatever it might be. So it's about collecting these things around you and being ready to put them on application forms and to be able to talk about them at interview, so an interview panel can look at this information and go, wow, that person's got something really useful there that's helping them stand out from the crowd and makes me want to give them a job. And in order to sort of to do that, you need to be ready. You need to sort of be prepared to sell yourself. And businesses are very good at doing this. They do something, produce something called an elevator pitch. Well, good business people do, and that is sort of an opportunity to sort of to really sort of very concisely show off, essentially. The notion of the elevator pitch, by the way, is a sort of anachronistic sort of tale of you're stood at the bottom of a tall building, and you're just about to get into a lift or an elevator, if you will, and who should walk in at the same time as you, but let's just say one of these dragons from the Dragon's Den here. And you are looking for investment in your business, so this is your perfect opportunity to pitch your business idea to one of these grumpy so and so's here. And but you've only got the length of time it takes for you both to be travelling in that elevator before you or the person that you're trying to pitch your idea to leaves. So you've got to get this down to a very short 30-second, 1 minute pitch, which will allow you to convince them that you've got something interesting that they would like to continue the conversation with you about. And so obviously you're not you don't necessarily need to do a pitch in that sense, but I want you to think about how you could sum up yourself in a very short, succinct passage that would allow a potential employer to read that passage and then make a very instant decision about whether you are the sort of person that they would like to talk to or not. And where do you see these things? Well, you always see them as a small, short, personal statement, a short summary at the top of a CV, for example. Or you might you'll see the same sort of thing at the sort of top of a LinkedIn profile. You could put it on any sort of web page, a portfolio page that you wanted to produce. You could also use it as a personal statement in a cover letter. So it's good to sort of have this very short outline of you, what your skills are, why you are essentially fabulous and you rock. So in class next week, Jane is going to be working with you to consider how you might pull together a sort of perfect elevator pitch stroke personal profile. But in the meantime, if you could think about that before you get to class, that would be very useful. It would be super useful if you could just make a few notes. Just think, why are you brilliant? That's all you need to think, And everybody's got something, and you may not have the perfect personal statement yet because you are still in the process of developing and and growing your experience, and obviously moving through your course and learning new skills and knowledge. So don't worry if you don't have a perfect one yet. It will grow, but you do need one. And actually, you do need to produce this because you are being asked to produce a CV for your assessment 2, which is your portfolio, which is due in next year. And so it's not wasted. You will be using it anyway. Okay, so I've jabbered on. So there's one main thing, just to reiterate, there's one main thing that I want you to do before class next week, and that is this value proposition. List your skills and see where there's a gap. So this gap analysis is what I need you to complete for next week. Any questions, as usual, please don't hesitate to contact myself or Jane, and we'll be happy to help. In the meantime, have fun, and we'll speak to you soon.